Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And as ever, here at the top of the show of the No Name Music Cast, I have a little bit of music news. Music news.
Wah, wah, wah.
So this is a follow-up to something we covered in maybe the last episode or the episode before. Now, as you know, the band Kiss have retired. They've retired from touring. They had their last show at Madison Square Garden. And they've decided that they're not going to be a touring entity anymore, but they've been digitized. The Kiss Army have given them the power to be immortal as their avatars, which basically means they're going to put on a show like ABBA Voyage in London.
Yeah.
Now, their original Ace Frehley, original guitarist Ace Frehley, he was not part of that final concert. And a lot of people say him together with Peter Criss should have been at that final concert, but they were not invited. And some of the Kiss fans are not happy about these avatars because the drummer and the guitar player are represented by the people who were in the band last, not the originals. And like, and they said, we wouldn't be here today without Ace and Peter Criss, but these other guys propelled the band for the last 20 something years, so they're the ones that should be these avatars and yada yada yada. So anyway, there's been a rebuttal from Ace Frehley. So he said, I don't get this avatar thing that they're going to do. I mean, I saw some of it on video on YouTube last night, and it looks like, it was geared towards children.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that would go that way. You know what I mean, Tim? I see that.
Yeah, I mean, Kiss is geared towards printing dollar bills. That's what they're geared towards.
I mean, at least they're honest about it. I'll give them that.
Exactly. And he also said it's not rock and roll. He said, I get up on stage without backing tracks, plug my guitar into a Marshall amp and go. That's it. It's always been that way, and that's always the way it will be. Now, I've seen some footage of Ace Frehley perform, and in fact, he performed at Dr. Pepper Park in Roanoke not that long ago. And it's fair to say, yes, it's live, and he's plugging into his Marshall, but what I've seen isn't necessarily good.
Well, I mean, he's honest. It's an honest review, I guess.
That's true. I mean, the last few Kiss shows, probably much of it was on backing tracks, but I saw some sort of live footage from it, and people had shot on their phones and things like that, and it looked absolutely fantastic as far as a spectacle is concerned. If you go along thinking it's theater, or if you go along thinking it's like Cirque du Soleil or something, it's fabulous. If you go along thinking that everyone on stage is playing what you hear or singing what you hear, that's probably not the case.
But I mean, it's not like they've ever shied away from that in my mind. Like, they've been open about that. And to some credit, they're getting quite older, too. And it does affect your ability. I mean, some people's ability to play or sing or whatever. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I get that.
But there you go. But yeah, that was a rebuttal from Ace Frehley.
Fair. Anyway.
Well, yep. So I have one other piece of music news. And this is coming from Metallica's Kirk Hammett. Now, Metallica's Kirk Hammett, if you don't know, is the lead guitarist in the band Metallica. He probably doesn't have a terribly recognizable guitar sound, if I'm being honest. I once read on a forum, somebody said, I've got all this equipment, and how can I dial it in to get a Kirk Hammett lead guitar sound? And they said, get any rubbish broken transistor amplifier and make sure the speaker's broken, and there you go, which is very unkind. But...
Tip's got some negative feedback on his things today.
But he does say something here that is very interesting.
Okay.
He said, to the majority of the listening world, he said, most people are not going to remember guitar solos in songs. He said, they're going to remember the melody, and you're going to remember a great song, and you're going to remember the lyrics and all that kind of stuff. He said, unless it's something that's super, super memorable, most of the time, no one's ever going to remember the guitar solo.
I mean, that's true. And like Tim said, whenever he's made me listen to guitar kind of S songs, he goes, generally, the general public's not that interested in this. Like, you know what I mean? Especially when it's a drawn out thing. So it makes sense.
Obviously, I'm a guitar player. And even I don't like instrumental guitar rock because I find it incredibly boring. There are a couple of deviations from that. I like Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani. and I like Passion and Warfare by Steve Vai. And both of those have great songs. The fact that they're just guitar instrumental recordings doesn't matter because the songs are great. But I
Yeah.
find I listen to something like Dream Theater or some of the other Vai stuff. Or even like, I mean, Eric Johnson is a great guitar player. And he's got some great songs like Cliffs of Dover. But I find that if you put one of those albums on, it's just like, oh, when's this going to stop? When does the lyrics begin?
I feel like it's a natural thing to want more, and that's why layering of music works so well. Is why you have to have all of it together for it to work. But yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. And the few guitar solos that everybody knows off the top of their heads are the ones that are just like phenomenal, right, Tim? Like, there's a few handful of songs we all know. That's a great guitar solo, but there's probably thousands of others that are better that I've never paid attention to.
Yeah, I mean, like you got the guitar solo on Van Halen's Jump. You have the guitar solo on Bohemian Rhapsody and Killer Queen. You have the guitar solo on, dare I say it, that Sweet song.
It got used again and again, but
Yeah,
anyway.
or at least the opening figure, that solo guitar, the opening
Yeah.
figure. People will know that, and if you went up to someone and said, "Oh, how does the beginning of that song begin?" and people would be able to go to hum it to you because it is so
Free
definitive.
Bird's another one.
Yeah, Freebird's another one. But if I asked you how does the guitar solo go in Metallica's One, you probably wouldn't know that.
Nope. I really wouldn't. Not, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't. And I've said many times because of where I'm much more interested in singing, I focus in on the lyrics and I focus in on the words way more than the general public. So I guess it's just what your interests are, really.
Exactly. Well, Kirk Hammett goes on to say, he says he figured all this out when he was 15 years old. Well, there you go, Kirk Hammett.
I mean, it makes sense though. So smart 15-year-old. All right. So I have two pieces of music news, and then we will get into the topic, which is going to be an interesting one. And I might say some songs that Tim doesn't know, and I might say some songs that Tim knows that I don't know. So you'll see why in a minute.
Okay.
Anyway, into the music news. I was surprised. I thought me and Tim might both have this same one, but Colin Barris, the original AC/DC drummer, passed away today at 77 years old.
Yeah, I actually saw that today. I mean, he was there at the very beginning of the band. He was a very original drummer with the band, and as we know, they've been through a number of drummers in their career, but he was the chap when they started off.
Yeah, so basically he was born in Sydney, which we know they're Australian. It says he played in a number of bands. There was one called The Master Apprentice as well after AC/DC, but he was the part of the original lineup. He joined Malcolm Young on rhythm guitar, his then brother Angus on lead guitar, Dave Evans on lead vocals, and then Larry Van Kent on bass. In November of 1973. He played for a few months with the band, best providing instrumentals for the song "Can I Sit Next to You, Girl?" And they haven't given a cause of death. I mean, he was 77, so take it for whatever. Just the AC/DC's Instagram just shared a cute little picture of him, and it said, "Happy memories, rock in peace, Colin."
There we are. Well, rock in peace, sir. You started that juggernaut. You started that train, which still continues to this day.
Now, this one is, I'm not going to get into too much detail about it, but I don't know if Tip has seen this. Have you seen that the Scorpions are going to have a Las Vegas residency in 2024?
I haven't seen that, but that seems to be the thing that you do, especially if you're an older band and you don't want to travel around the world all the time. Let's go to Vegas. They have great food. They have buffets. They have hotels.
Well, they are going to do that. They've already put the lineup up. It seems to be mostly in April. Give or take, I think probably a few months around that, but mostly in April. It's the 40th anniversary of their iconic album, Love at First Sting. Get it, everybody? And there's going to be a song that has never been performed that is going to be a new song they're doing. And that they've been promoting, people trying to get it to come out by telling them there's a new song. And they released that information yesterday. I just thought it was cool. And the Scorpions are kind of one of those I hate to say this, almost like Kiss, larger than life bands. So it would make sense if they would end up in Vegas.
Absolutely. I mean, my favorite Scorpions album isn't necessarily any of their early work. It's their 90s album, Crazy World. And it has that song, Tease Me, Please Me on it. It's also the same album that has Wind of Change on it. But I don't know, I bought that when it came out and it really resonated with me. And it's an album that I still enjoy to this day.
So Charlie loves that song "Wind of Change" from 1990, and so he forgot who sang it. Like he knew what the song was, but he could not place it for like 15 years. And one day he said it to me and I told him what it was. So after I told him what it was, he like listened to it nonstop for going on 2 years since he finally found it again. It's kind of like me with Slay, how that happened. But anyway.
Well, there we go. Well, it is a good song. The full-length album version is the one you want. We're talking about memorable guitar solos. The guitar solo in it is great. Rudy Schenker plays a great solo on that, on his Flying V. But the radio edit of it cuts that solo almost completely off. It just starts and then it ends. But there's a much longer solo.
Charlie prefers the longer version, I promise you. I've heard it many times, but I mean, he loves, like I said, dramatic music, so that's right up his alley.
Exactly. I could see that would be a song that Charlie could completely get behind.
Oh, yeah. All right. So going into this week's episode, I kind of toyed around with what I wanted to do, and I decided to do kind of a UK US kind of comparison type thing. So I'm always interested to see like what the highest grossing songs in different decades are. And I feel like me and Tim have talked the 80s and 90s to death at this point on the podcast. So I went with the 70s. And we're going to compare which artists had the top number ones in the US and in the UK for the 1970s. Okay. Might not get to all of these, but I do find it kind of interesting to see. And I think there's 2 songs of the UK one that I don't even know. So I'm sure Tim could provide you guys with insight. Or if I do know it, I don't recognize it by name. Does that make sense? Like if I heard it, I probably would, but.
It does. And, you know, I was born in the 70s, allegedly. So maybe that stuff was there in my formative years. So I'll be able to point you in the right direction.
I hope so. Or we'll just stare at each other and move on to the next song. So the most number one consecutive weeks is a song that I hate in America.
Okay.
It is a song that I hold a grudge against because when I worked at Kroger, this song played, Kroger being the grocery store I worked in HR, nonstop. And it does not surprise me. This was number one, had the most period in the 70s and years. This is You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone.
Yeah, that is a classic super sounds of the 70s song, one that I would expect to hear on supermarket panned canned music.
I have that stupid "You Light Up" in my head. If you've never heard that song, guys, I think that's the whole song. There's like 3 lyrics to the song. And another girl I used to work with used to complain when it would come on because she remembered when she was in high school band in the 70s, they played this song nonstop. And she said she could never stand to hear it again. Now, what's funny about this to me is I don't really know much about Debbie Boone. I think she may have been an actress too. But I'm pretty sure in my mind, she was a one-hit wonder. So isn't it ironic that she had 10 weeks straight, the highest in all of the 70s? To me, you would think like the Bee Gees or something. I wouldn't have thought Debbie Boone.
No, I wouldn't have thought that too. But, you know, sometimes those one-hit wonders really do resonate with people. And the fact that, you know, almost 50 years later, it's being played on heavy rotation in a supermarket. It sort of stands to that kind of thing about the song.
You know, it's kind of like, because, you know, like yacht rock, you think of all kind of like male artists a lot of the time. She's like the female version of yacht rock.
Yeah, I think if you're deciding that you're going to embrace the genre of yacht rock as a female artist, yes, I could see that.
Yeah. Anyway, so for the UK number one, it wasn't 10 weeks, it was 9 weeks. And I guarantee you, Tim will not be shocked to hear it is by a band known as Queen, and it was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, the fabled Bohemian Rhapsody, which I actually listened to for the first time in a long time as part of my daily album challenge of 1,001 albums you must listen to that I do with our listener Megan. And that came up, and I did listen to the whole of A Night at the Opera, including Bohemian Rhapsody, because typically I wouldn't put that on. And I don't know, I was away enough to enjoy it, though I would say the Prophet song on that album is a far better song. But yes, I could see that. And of course, Bohemian Rhapsody has been re-released about 4 times since.
Oh yeah, I still remember like in the 90s when the video got re-released and was making its round on VH1. Do you remember like 1992, 1993? Like it was all over VH1 like it just came out yesterday.
It
But
was, and that was probably the Wayne's World version.
it was, I'm sure. Okay, so number two for the US is not shocking at all. It is for 8 weeks and it tied with another one that I'll get into in a second. And it is Night Fever by the Bee Gees.
There we are. That is just classic disco. It's got the wacka wacka guitar in it. It's got music that you want to dance to. It's got them all singing in harmony, all high. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, is there better disco music than that? Really?
No, and the three-part harmony is amazing. Robin has a very clear vibrato, which comes through it like a lot of their earlier hits. It's very signature of the Bee Gees sound. Now, I've told you guys many times, my mom is a huge lover of the Bee Gees. I'm very familiar with the Gibb brothers. And so with that being said, it doesn't surprise me at all that this was number one. My dad swears that he got so burnt out of the Bee Gees in the 70s that he's kind of like me and Tim when we had those songs that were like, do not ever name, just don't say the name of that. The Bee Gees are basically that for him because he said he heard them so much.
I can see that. But you know what's funny about the Bee Gees? Again, with this 1001 Albums Challenge, there's been a few pre-disco era Bee Gees albums. And I don't know, their pre-disco work just doesn't do it for me. It's kind of meh.
Yeah,
It
I
seems
can
to me
agree with
when
that.
they hit the disco thing is like when it went boom. But you know, the Brothers Gibb prior to that really didn't set my world on fire.
That's fair. I don't really, I can agree with that. They just hit their strong suit was really in 70s disco music and then writing for other people. But
Oh,
that really seemed to be their thing.
yeah, and also lending their vocals, their harmony
Hmm.
vocals to backing tracks. I mean, they famously wrote the Diana Ross song "Chain Reaction," which was like a comeback song of sorts.
Hmm.
They wrote that for her, and they also appear on the track doing backing vocals too. And it just has that classic Bee Gees sound about it. And you know, with Diana Ross's amazing vocal, it's just like this is so good.
They also wrote the Frankie Valley Grease song. They wrote
Mhm.
Barbara Streisand a song. I think they wrote Cruisin', Cruisin', that song.
Mhm.
And then, of course, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream, and they're
Yeah.
singing on that. There's tons, guys. Like if you ever go down that rabbit hole, you'll be there forever because they wrote so many songs for so many other people.
They did. And yeah, and then you mentioned Islands in the Stream. I got stuck on that song a few years ago, and that's all I wanted to hear. And I listened to it like 5 times a day, and it's just too much.
So I know Tim does not know this because he is not on the TikToks, but I have to tell him about this. So Victoria Beckham and David Beckham, like Posh Spice, you know who Victoria Beckham and David Beckham is.
Yeah.
You're from the UK, even if you don't want to know, you know. So anyway, with that being said, there was a trend going around on TikTok because there was a video of like, I guess they did some type of documentary together or something. But this video started, it was called the Victoria Beckham thing, and the song was Islands in the Stream. And she was like holding like a cocktail in her hand. She started dancing, and then David Beckham joined her. And then there was like a trend of people dancing to Islands in the Stream and seeing if their spouse would join them. And there were some really funny ones that came out where like people like most of the time generally the ones people put out, it made the spouse look good. But there was one or two, like one woman went to the extent of putting on her literal wedding dress, Tim, and danced in front of this guy, and he never got danced with her. And she still posted it online. And I thought it was funny that it made such like people were so interested in it because if you watch very closely in the original, Victoria Beckham and David Beckham are just doing the electric slide to Islands in the Stream. It's not like any. I mean, it was cute. It was a cute moment, but it was just funny to. I don't know.
Streams to the left, streams to the
I
right.
mean, all you have to do is have a 4 count song, and you can literally do the electric slide to anything. It's not rocket science, Tim. It's basically a grapevine and a little extra few moves. Anyway, so that was going around on the internet, and so I fell down a rabbit hole of that. And I love Posh Spice; she's like one of my favorites, as you guys know. So She also has a really witty humor that people don't know because people joke about how she looks like she's never smiling, you know? But if
Hmm.
you actually hear her talk, she has a very British humor. Very British.
Yeah, I probably heard her speak maybe 3 times in my life, in all honesty.
That's what I said. I was like, I know Tim's not going to have any clue. But anyway. All right. So number two is a tie. It is 9 weeks in the UK. It is. I'm going to embarrass myself here and make Tim pronounce this because I know he's going to know and I don't know how to say this. This band, Wings, it's Paul McCartney, Wings or Wings,
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it, they had a song called Girls School, which I know of. But apparently it tied with Mole of Kitrite. What is that, Tim?
Join.
Mole?
It is Mull of Kintyre.
I
The,
don't know what that is.
the Mull of Kintyre is a place in Scotland.
Of course it is.
Yeah, Paul McCartney, when the Beatles were breaking up, he decided that he was needed to buy some property and just get away from London because he said every business meeting he had with the Beatles as the band was breaking up was he'd go into a meeting and there was lawyers and there was managers and Paul wanted this and George wanted that and Ringo wanted this. And he said he was just done with it. So what he decided to do was buy a farm. So he bought this farm in the Mull of Kintyre, which is in Scotland. And it was a very old, dilapidated farmhouse. And him and Linda were just starting to raise their children. And he said it was perfect. And, he'd gone through his entire life being the guy in the Beatles, and everyone wants to know him and everyone wants to be around him. And he said it was just so soothing. You go up to this dilapidated house and he said, "What am I doing today? Oh, I'm fixing a fence. Oh, what am I doing today? Oh, I'm gonna shear some sheep." And then he said he just felt it was such a good cleanse for him. But anyhow, as he would wake up every morning in his farmhouse, he'd see the mists rolling in over the Mull of Kintyre, and a mull being like an area, like an inlet of water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get with that. I got the mole part. It was the name of the city or town or whatever you want to call it. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how to say this.
Yeah, and also he knew somebody up there who played the bagpipes, and he wanted to make a song he wanted to create a Scottish anthem because he felt there hadn't been a really good or new Scottish anthem in a many years. So he knew somebody who played the bagpipes, and that piper came to the farmhouse, and the guy cranked up his bagpipes, and because bagpipes are all in one key. You can't
Yeah.
change key in bagpipes. The bagpipes make that sound, and you have to work around it. And there's no other way of doing it. So
Yeah.
he got this piper going, and then he works out what key it's in and how they can change the chords. And he said, yeah, we'll call you when it's time to go. And then he wrote that song, Mull of Kintyre. And then, of course, when he recorded it, he got bagpipes and stuff on it. And probably at this point, maybe it is a contemporary Scottish anthem. But yeah, Kintyre, Mull of Kintyre.
So glad Tim knew all that. I had a feeling that was coming when I didn't know what was going on. To be fair, I really don't think that was a single at all in America, Tim. Like, and you have to remember, I wasn't born till 1990, so I'm pretty good at my knowledge. But that one was one that I was like, I don't know what's happening. So I was very thankful Tim did. I mean, I knew it was obviously Wings and Paul McCartney, and I've heard the song Girls School before. But I imagine that because this is the UK single, that's probably why it would have been much more popular there. But anyway, so with that being said, we will move on to the third one. And I'm very happy Tim was able to give us that knowledge. The next one is one that is a favorite of mine in the US. It is not shocking at all, but not really an artist we've talked about too much. It is Tonight's the Night, Gonna Be All Right by Rod Stewart.
Yeah, he is one of those artists. Obviously, he's a British artist, and he got his start busking at Twickenham train station. Now, I used to live in Twickenham. It's down opposite the train station. Is opposite. I assume it's still there, where the post office sorting office used to be at the bottom of Twickenham Bridge. I'm assuming all of that stuff is still there because it was there when I was last there. And he was busking outside Twickenham train station, and then the guitarist Jeff Beck was from that area too, and he'd hear him when he used to travel in the trains up into London, and I think he got chatting with him, and that's where it all started from for Rod Stewart. But he was an expat to the United States very early on. I think he's been an American citizen for 50 years or something at this point. But he sort of does have a lot of popularity on this side, or I say this side, the Yeah, this side of the Atlantic. Well, it depends on where you're listening to this podcast, I suppose.
But if you're on the East Coast.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, and they said he used to play a harmonica when he was busking. I know what you're talking about. I've heard that story before. He's one that I grew up with, and my mom was a big Rod Stewart fan. I love Rod Stewart. Maggie May plays in my head rent free just every other Saturday, pretty much. And then I love The Faces. So we all know that was a big one for me too when he was in The Faces. But yeah, I like Rod Stewart. I find it funny because one time me and Tim joked about I was doing some research for one of the episodes and I came across a page that tried to claim Rod Stewart was a one-hit wonder. Do you remember that? We were like, what?
Yes, absolutely. I think by any metric that you want to use, he is not a one-hit wonder.
And he had such a wonderful voice, like such a pure sounding voice when he sounds. Like it's very interesting because he has like a very delicate sound, but it also could sound rugged. Do you know what I mean, Tim? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, he has like a rasp to his voice, which suits sort of a rock and roots rock very well. I mean, later on in his career, he got into this whole greatest American songbook stuff, doing standards, and I think that's pretty much what he does now. And if you see Rod Stewart play, he kicks a few soccer balls around and then sings "My Way" and things like that. But whatever he likes, I suppose at this point.
Wasn't he known for having like the world's longest concerts or something? Like he had like huge, super long concerts back in the day.
I think so. Something like that. And he's also, I think, much like Elton John, who either owns or is a majority shareholder in Watford Football Club, he had some other like soccer club that he was involved with in a similar kind of capacity, I believe.
Well, you know what's interesting is he did kind of the same thing. So speaking, Elton John always claims that he was popular in America before he was popular in England, right? Like, and we talked about on my episode, what seems to happen is solo artists do better in America and bands do better in the UK. And Rod Stewart is somebody who said he was very successful in America almost, pretty soon, if not before he hit the UK market. And so I find it very interesting. Like you said, he's lived in America now since probably like the 60s, the 70s, something like that. And now he performs American standard.
Yeah. Like if you pulled up like his discography, the last 3 or 4 albums of the Great American Songbook or whatever they're called.
Him and his wife are really active on TikTok. Speaking of that,
really,
and his wife is taller than he is by a long shot. She's a model, and there was one that was "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" There was a little TikTok dance that was going around that he did, and it was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, him and his wife did, but yeah,
perfect.
So. And for number 3, I find it funny that Rod Stewart was number 3 for the U.S., but number 3 for the UK was Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta's "You're the One That I Want" for 9 weeks straight.
Classic. I mean, how could this not be? This is a great song.
So it's just interesting to me because, Grease is like a huge movie in America, but I guess it was just as big, if not bigger, in the UK.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it played in London's West End for decades, and I saw that stage show. I think once or twice I saw it, but even like schools do productions of it. It's got a real sort of cultural grip in the UK. People love it.
One of our swing choir kind of choreographies we did was I did one for Grease one year. So, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, I was never in Grease the musical because there's multiple versions. There's the stage version, and then there's the version that you see on TV, and then there's a version that sometimes people do that's like a cleaned up version of the movie because there's some stuff on it that's a little risky for schools to do. But that's one musical I've never been in that I would like to be in. At this point, though, it's almost a cliche like musical. You know what I mean, Tim? Like so many schools have done it. So it's like.
Exactly. But it's great, though. It's got great songs. I mean, why would you not want to do it?
I know. It would be so much fun. And actually, the live action version they did a few years back, when they were going on that big kick of doing like live actions on TV, the Grease version they did was the best by far. It was outstanding. Some of them have been pretty bad. Carrie Underwood's version of The Sound of Music was terrible and boring, and I loved The Sound of Music. I was in The Sound of Music probably, I don't know, we did like 6 shows, so I'm pretty familiar with it, and it just wasn't good. But the Grease one, phenomenal, and they actually did really good on the soundtrack. There you go.
Well, there we are. High praise, Joy.
Yes, it was very, very good. So, number 4 on the American side. So this was at 7 weeks at number 1. It is Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb. So the other Gibb brother.
Interesting. I had a Andy Gibb album that I bought from a thrift shop, and it was not good. There was like one good track on it. I actually released it back into the wild. I ripped it into my computer and I bid it farewell back out into the universe.
Yeah, this is the only song that I really know that well from him, but it is really popular. Like, I heard it on American radio a lot, and I like this song. And this is the one, remember, Tim, I was convinced somebody else sang it for a very long time. And I don't know why. I can't remember who it was, but one day I was like, Andy Gibb, that's who's been singing this. Because, I know he existed. He had that heartthrob haircut back in the 70s, apparently. But yeah, I just thought it was funny that he made his, because he's kind of a one-hit wonder too, but he made him and Debbie Boone up here. They made enough money off of one song they never had to write again. But did something sad happen to him? Was he the one who passed away or something?
I think so. I think there's only one of the Gibb brothers that's left now. I think there's only one that's still with us. But I think we lost him very early on.
That's what I meant by that.
Yeah.
I think something happened and he passed away. Let's see. Oh, yeah, he was only 30 when he passed away. That's probably why. So I've heard a little bit them talk about him, and he was very, they're very emotional about him. But he made enough of a standard that he made number 4. So number 4 for the UK, and I swear, Tim, and I cannot remember who this was, but somebody on Freak Jam fame said on one of our many meetings that one of you guys knew this person or partied with this person or something. It is Mungo Jerry's In the Summertime.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was.
Yeah, have a drink, have a drive, come and see what you can find. Sage advice in 1970, whatever, I'm sure, but not so much these days.
Well, if her daddy is rich, take her out for a spin. If her daddy is poor, just do. Yeah. So anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, I think my uncle, or my great uncle, who's no longer with us, but he lived in Germany. He was a tax exile and lived in Germany. We went through some town, and then he proudly told me this is the town that Mungo Jerry lives in. I do know that, but I think it might have been Josh had some connection to Mungo Jerry. I think
somebody out there remembers that story, and I'm not actually going crazy. I'd love to hear it again because I remember thinking it was super interesting because I like the song. And I'm assuming, I've always wondered if Mungo Jerry was a reference to Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer, which is the T.S. Eliot's All Possum book of practical cats that the musical Cats is written about. I don't know if you knew that, Tim, but
I did know that, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, because that's an unusual name to come up with just because.
I played Mrs. Jenny Anydots when I was in Cat. I was the huge fat cat, as you guys are well aware. But I love Mungo Jerry and Rumpelteazer, both those songs. And that is about the hardest music you can sing ever. Like that one you'll go on Vocal Olympics if you ever do that one. But anyway, yeah. But I mean, once again, Mungo Jerry is not one of those songs, like I hear it a lot in America, but I probably wouldn't have put it as one of the top songs of the 70s here. So I'm guessing it was more popular in the UK.
Yeah, whenever you get any kind of compilation greatest hits of the 70s, it will have that Mungo Jerry song on it. It very much defines that era for a lot of people. It does come to my brain a lot, and the at the beginning is very iconic. Mm-hmm.
There we go. So, number, I guess it's 5 for the U.S. For the U.S. is, oh God, a song that I probably never want to hear again. This was at 6 weeks. At number 1, it is Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, it's again, that's one of those songs that's so brilliant and so iconic and timeless, and you could probably do without ever hearing it again.
That's one that, like, yeah, if I had to, now I have looked into this. This is one though, like if you picked up a 70s album in America, Tim, and it was the generic singers of 74, this could be on it. And that Let the Bridge is used so much, that background sound.
Hmm.
But I read that it was influenced, basically it's supposed to be a combination of gospel music and then the wall of sound style production. You put those two things together and you get Bridge Over Troubled Water, which makes sense. And then the instrumentation on this is provided by the Wrecking Crew, which Tim has talked about many times over.
Hmm.
So that's why it's probably so iconic, because they do such a wonderful job, period.
Yeah, I mean, you said it was 1974.
Actually, this is 1970.
Oh, 1970. I was going to say, if it was 1974, that was the soundtrack that I was listening to as I was beginning my journey in this world. But 1970, not so much.
Oh no, it's probably because I was counting which number. 4 was where I thought it was, but it was at 5th place on my list. But yeah, 1970. It was originally recorded in 1969, wasn't released till 1970. And to be fair, I mean, Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel have like the two best voice combinations that you could come up with.
Oh, sure. But then, of course, you get to the bit where Art Garfunkel was only brought along because Paul Simon didn't feel confident enough to sing his own songs. And then when he realized he could sing his own songs, he resented having Art Garfunkel around. And there's that tension between them.
And
then,
Paul Simon went on his own.
yeah. And then, every now and again, they'll do some award show type thing and the pair of them will come together and then they just don't look comfortable.
But money is money, Tim.
And that's very true. But Paul Simon has a lot of it and probably doesn't care too much.
Poor Art Garfunkel. I don't know if he does. But anyway, all right. So that was the American one. We're going to go back on the UK one, Tim. And here we go again. It is Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta's Summer Nights for 7 weeks at #1.
Oh, another classic. Fantastic.
I mean, I kind of see Grease as an American film for whatever reason in my mind. And so it kind of shocks me that because it's not anywhere's on the American list. I can tell you that. No spoilers there, but that's crazy.
It just, as I said, it speaks to the popularity of Grease and it also speaks to the popularity of Olivia Newton-John. I mean, she was 70s and 80s, she was such a phenomenon. And, and as you got into the 80s, like with Physical, how massive that song was in the UK as well.
Well, that was on one of these episodes we've done where we talk about like highest grossing songs or something. I'm pretty sure Physical was there. And, everybody makes jokes about Xanadu, but it was super popular too. And she could sing. That's just what it comes down to. She was a great singer. And from what I've heard, she was a good person. I've never really heard anything negative about her.
Absolutely. And I mean, we sadly lost her not that long ago. But I mean, she still had it almost completely up to the end. And her vocals were amazing. The songs that she sang were amazing. And you talk about Physical. I mean, from my perspective, yes, it's a great pop song and it's Olivia Newton-John and all kind of stuff. But it has such a great guitar solo from Steve Lukather in it.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
Because, I've never paid attention to it until Tim mentioned it to me on one of the podcasts. And now every time it comes on Spotify or something, I listen for the guitar part.
Yeah, I really need to work that out because it is such an iconic, great solo. It's classic Lukather. All the phrasing in it is classic Lukather. And it's one of those things I just really need to sit down and work it out note for note because it is so good.
It's very clean. If that makes sense. There's something so clean about it. It's done so well.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, he's probably playing his 59 Les Paul into some kind of Marshall or another, but it's not terribly gainy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does have a clarity about it.
It's very interesting. If you've never paid attention, go back if you're like me, and you'll now, once you've noticed it, you can't unnotice it.
Yeah, and Steve Lukather, I think he said it in his book. One thing that really surprised him, because he was booked on a lot of sessions. He famously played on Thriller.
Yeah.
If you find any song of that era and you look in the notes, he's probably playing on it. Him and Will Lee on bass. I mean, like, the pair of them were booked out all the time. And he was, at the time, Olivia Newton-John, she'd come off the back of Grease. She was a big name, big pop singer, and her celebrity was rising to heights that, no one had ever seen. And he was surprised for something which was effectively a backing track for an artist, that the producer gave him as much free rein to play the solo. He thought, well, like, if I get a solo on this, it's going to be a few bars of stuff and that's it. But there's so much of it on that track, and it just surprised him that the producer wanted that much guitar on it.
And I mean, it is kind of interesting because I would think, as if I were him going into it, this being an Olivia Newton-John pop song, that I wouldn't get like a huge solo either, or really like that much notice. You know what I mean, Tim, as a guitarist, like, you just think, I'm just going to play it through and I'll be done, and it'll just be kind of me in the background.
Sure.
Well, that's cool. And it does kind of make the song a little bit different, even if you don't realize it. With that being said, the next song is a song that I know very well. It's a song that there's debate if I was married. That's not what I wanted to say. If I was named after, it is Joy to the World, Three Dog Night. That was at 6 weeks at #1 in America in the 1970. I have to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great song. I mean, Three Dog Night are probably known best in the UK for that song. Also, the song Mama Told Me Not to Come was covered by the Stereophonics and Tom Jones. And we used to play that in the band The Guilty Party for a period of time as well. So that sort of had a little bit of resurgence of the Three Dog Night name. But certainly Joy to the World is where it's all about.
Yeah. So Mama Told Me Not to Come is one that shows up on like every year, like one of my most listened songs. Mm-hmm. I listen to that song a lot. I think it's got a really cool sound to it. And it's just fun. But I mean, Joy to the World is, well, it's funny because I had a friend who shared something about their name. I remember, I had two stories about names and songs. So obviously, my name is Joy, if you guys haven't picked up on this. Around Christmas time, my name is everywhere. It's the only time of year I can buy things with my name on it. So people use that. Like, I've got Joy Christmas ornaments, Christmas mugs, everything. Every year somebody gives me one thing with the name Joy on it for Christmas. But I knew a guy whose name was Jeremiah, which, Joy to the World famously has that thing that said Jeremiah was a bullfrog, that lyric. Mm-hmm. And he complained to me once about he gets tired of being called a bullfrog. It was sitting there complaining to me about, his name being in the song. And I went, you realize my name is Joy? Like, do you know how many times my name is in that song? And you're going to complain. Like, he deadpan, didn't even think about it, Tim. Went on a tangent about hearing about how he was a bullfrog because his name was Jeremiah. And I just had to bite my tongue. And when he got done, I looked at him and went, you can't be serious right now. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, my name is Joy. Like, it's in every part of the song. Well,
anyway. Do you know what? I'm thinking about it. I don't think there's any songs with my name in it.
I don't know. If you do a lyrics check.
Well, I've got the Spotify here. Let's have a look. Let's put Timothy. And I put songs. Oh, there's a song by Henry Mancini, set in Henry Mancini, Dada and the Boys. Oh, Tennis did a song called Timothy. I take that back. I need to have a self-indulgent playlist with just my name in it.
Mine would actually, I probably have quite a few songs.
Oh, I mean, 25% of the Spotify has got Joy in it, probably.
Probably. It's just funny because I just remember that. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And of course, the amount of people, I remember people like to make jokes on the phone if they're talking to me at work and they're like, you were a joy to talk to. All the things.
Well, I remember the last time we went up to Canada, we was in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. And it wasn't even near Christmas or anything. It was just these huge 15-foot tall letters at the side of the falls that just said Joy. And I remember I sent you the picture and I said, look, they're honoring you here, Joy. What's going on?
Who knew? Anyway, So there we go. So for the UK side, I was surprised about this one. Once again, I just didn't expect this song. It is for 6 weeks, and then all the songs after this for the UK are all 6 weeks. But for 6 weeks, it is Elvis Presley's "The Wonder of You."
Now, what year?
So that song came out in, let's see. It was re-released in 1970. So I guess it was actually written in the 50s, but they released it in 1970. So in the UK, it was released in 1970.
When did we lose Elvis?
Late 70s, right? Let's see.
77. Because I didn't know whether that song was re-released as a kind of tribute to Elvis around the time we lost him. It was actually 77.
Oh, here's why, Tim. The song was adapted by the English Association of Football Club, Port something, VALE.
Port Vale.
Apparently that song was used in their matches and sung by their fans. I bet that's why it had a surgence, or why people were into it.
There we are. I mean, people loved Elvis in the UK, and my friends Linda and Alan Dobson are the biggest Elvis fans I've ever met. And, people love that stuff. But I always felt that Elvis had a much bigger following in the US than he ever did in the UK.
Well, what surprised me is this. Well, here's the interesting thing about this, though, is I don't feel like "The Wonder of You" is a song that I would even think of in association with Elvis. So that song is not a popular song. So that's what surprised me. Not that he, was popular in the UK more than a song choice, but I bet it's because of this football club.
Yeah, though he does say "Take it away, James," and then James Burton plays a great guitar solo in it. So I do know that much about "The Wonder of You."
I don't really know. I know it's a remake. Like I said, there was an original in the 50s, and it was written by somebody named Baker Knight. But yeah, I mean, it's a good song, but I just was shocked that this was the song. Because when I think of his greatest songs, I mean, all that comes to mind are like Suspicious Minds or My Blue Suede Shoes or, Jailbreak. Yes, Tim. Jailback. That's what comes to mind.
Oh, classic. I love it when Elvis he used to start his concerts with Jailback. What a great song. Going back to the jail.
What's the song that you made me crack up on that episode where they sing about a jailbreak and they tell you like 7 times it's happening at the jailhouse, Tim?
It's Thin Lizzy's Jailbreak. The opening line says, "Tonight there's going to be a jailbreak somewhere in this town." Now, where's it going to be? In the Tesco? I don't know. In the library? I don't know. Where do you think it would be, Thin Lizzy?
I remember if you go back and listen to that episode, Lord knows which episode it was. But I just died laughing at Tim going, "I wonder where the jailbreak's going to be." Anyway. So yes, Jailbreak is the classic Elvis song I think of. But I don't think "The Wonder of You" is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably put up there with the definitive era of Elvis songs. I mean, that's certainly later era Elvis.
Well, there you go, guys. Now, this one surprised me in the US, and it's a good song, but I don't know that I would have associated it with being number one in the 70s for this long. So for 6 weeks, this is Roberta Flack's "The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face."
Yeah, again, classic super sounds of the 70s, but not one that I would necessarily consider a 70s classic, really.
Yeah, well, and I'm pretty sure that one's a remake of somebody else. A lot of her songs were, but it was probably her. I mean, she had to come out in the 70s. I don't know. That's why I want to talk about this, Tim, because I was surprised. You kind of have like an idea of what you think would have been the biggest hits of the 70s based off of my knowledge now. And these don't fit that.
Yeah. Have you ever listened to, I think it's on iHeartRadio, which is one of these online streaming things. They have Casey Kasem's America's Top 10. And they have the classic era of that, the 70s and the 80s. And they've actually done a really good job of archiving it because you get Casey Kasem's talking and then when anybody says, "Oh, and this is so-and-so," and then they play not from the original tape, they play it from their archives.
Yep.
In their, their play out system. So the quality is really good. And it's spoiled by the ads that they inject every 15 minutes. But it's interesting to listen back to like 1970 something or even in the 80s. And they say, oh, this is number 2. And they play the song and you're like, what is this song? I was around in 1987. What is that song?
It's so weird to think about. I know exactly. So I love Casey Kasem, and my mom used to play like a lot of his stuff on the radio. Like they would go back on 99.1 and play the old stuff. So I would hear it when I was a kid. And then Sirius XM did what you're talking about, like iHeartRadio did. Mm-hmm. I think they did it as well. So sometimes with Charlie, when I was in his car and he has Sirius, I'd listen to it. I love Casey Kasem's voice. I like the way he announces. But it's funny you bring him up because Charlie didn't know he was the original Scooby-Doo. Or Shaggy,
really?
The original Shaggy. Did you know that, Tim?
I did know that.
Okay, yeah, because one day we were talking and I was like, Charlie, Casey Kasem was the original Shaggy. And I think he was on the radio and he was like, wait a second, what? I was like, he was the original Shaggy. And I think he did some other voiceovers, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, and he's in Ghostbusters as well.
Oh, there you go. But he has a nice voice. He really does.
Oh, it's a classic radio voice. It's an iconic radio voice. And I think that what they should do on the Spotify, they have this stupid AI DJ thing. Have you ever used it?
Yeah.
Pointless.
It wasn't used.
Yeah, cool. You use it about 3 times and like, it was just some irritating voice talking all over my songs. Mm-hmm. What they should do is that they should license the audio likeness of Casey Kasem from his estate. Feed that into their thing, because what they've done, the guy who is AI DJ is just a guy, and then he's spoken, however many 100,000 lots of words into this thing. The logarithm learns all of his speech patterns, everything how he works through the sentences and everything, and then just replicates it. What they should do is feed hundreds of hours of Casey Kasem into it, and then your AI DJ should be Casey Kasem. Now you imagine Casey like something that sounds exactly like Casey Kasem talking up all of the songs that's in your playlist. And next, this is Napalm Death. And on with the countdown or whatever. It would be fantastic.
I love it. That's a good idea. If somebody uses that, Tim wants 10% of the royalty.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure they could license Casey Kasem's likeness from his estate.
Oh, I'm sure. Pay enough money and you could get what you want, Tim.
Yeah, I just think that would be fabulous. But then again, does that have any cultural cachet outside of the United States?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, was Scooby-Doo popular in the UK?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But again, we didn't have America's Top 10. I think they may have played it on some radio stations, but it was not a thing like it was here.
Yeah, for sure. If those of you who are in the UK and are curious what we're talking about, just go on YouTube and put in Casey Kasem. He'll come right up. He's just a famous radio host, and he has a really nice sounding, very clean voice.
Exactly. And if you listen to Ghostbusters, he might say, still making headlines across the nation, the Ghostbusters are at it again. This time at the fashionable dance club, The Rose. The boys in grey duked it out with a pesky poltergeist before dancing the night away with some of the lovely ladies that witnessed the disturbance. I'm Casey Kasem, and on with the countdown. He may say that, for example.
That was a pretty good impression, Tim. You got pretty close. All right. So the next one for the UK, like I said, everything going forward is 6 weeks at #1. This is a song that I love. I heard a lot in the US. I guess I wouldn't have assumed it would have been that popular in the UK, but it was. This is Band of Gold, Free to Pain.
Yes. Band of Gold. Yeah. I've got a series of albums on my computer called AM Gold. And that features very prominently, I think, on 1 or 2 of those compilations. But yeah, this was a big hit. I remember this as a kid. What do you have the year?
It's also February of 1970. So, yeah.
So, I mean, even still, by the time I was at the point where I would recognize things on the radio, years after the fact, they were still playing that. Well,
and the thing about it is this was a Motown song for sure. And this would have been later because a lot of Motown music came out in the 60s, as we're well aware of. But this was, I hear that, I can hear that so distinctly in my head. She had a beautiful voice. I don't know anything else about her. And I don't even know if I would have known that that's the name of the person singing it till now. So there you go.
Yeah, I knew it was Frida Payne,
I didn't.
but I
I don't think I
didn't.
did.
I don't know anything about her history.
I don't either. And from what I would assume, well, you have to remember there's also the Bonnie Tyler did a version of Band of Gold too. So that was also really popular in the UK, apparently. Just so you know. But that might be also why it's so like predominant in my break too, because of that version was really popular. But when I looked her up, I didn't really find out a whole lot of her having many other songs. So there you go.
Fabulous.
Anyway, but I just find it super interesting that she was popular. I don't know why. I don't know what my assumption is of what's popular in the UK, but that's not what I was thinking. All right. So this one again, random, just not what you would think is it's for the US. It's number 6, well, 6 weeks. I think we're at number, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're at number 7, everybody. I had to count. Tim's like, I don't know why this matters, but it is from 1972, and it is Gilbert O'Sullivan. He's your cousin, Tim. Alone Again, naturally.
I can tell you a Gilbert O'Sullivan story.
Is he really your cousin?
No, he may be a distant relative, but he's not someone that I'm familiar with. But my uncle, Gary O'Sullivan, as I said, he lived in Germany. Or my great uncle, my granddad's brother. He hasn't been with us for a number of years, but he lived in Germany. And he had a personalized license plate on his car. I believe he had it on his car in the UK before he left, and then he had that same UK car registered in Germany. There was some shenanigans going on with that. But anyway, he had a UK personalized license plate. And for those of you who don't know, here in the United States, every DMV in every state allows you to have anything you want within reason for a very reasonable fee. I have Knight, Knight on my car. My homage to my favorite TV show Knight Rider, as adorned on the Trans Am. I have Knight on the back of my Nissan Altima, and I have that for $10 a year or something. It is ridiculously cheap to have a personalized plate, and providing what you want is not offensive and it hasn't been taken, you can pretty much have anything you want. And different, like DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles in each state, issue these plates of anything you want at various costs. And I think in California, it's $100 a year. And in Oregon, it's 25. But in Virginia,
it just varies.
Yeah, in Virginia, it's very cheap. And every other car has a personalized license plate on it. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
And also in the United States, the license plate doesn't stay with the vehicle for the life of the car. If you sell that car, the next person who gets it has to put new license plates on it. And when
you could take it to your new car.
Yeah, you could. And in fact, we've done that.
I've done it.
Yeah, you trade a car in and they put your existing plate on the new car. So it's very much a transient thing. Whereas in the UK, when the car comes out the factory, it gets a license, it gets issued with DVLC or DVLA or whatever it's called these days. And that license plate is put on it. And that will, within reason, that will stay with it for the life of the vehicle. And also, the way that the plate is formatted, you should be able to work out the office that it was registered at, and most importantly, the year. So at a glance, you can, depending on which series it's in, because some of it, the letters went one way and then the letters went the other way. And now I think it's numbers and stuff. But yeah, if you're in that, if you know what you're looking for, you can pretty much tell the age of the vehicle by the license plate. Now, as a result of that, personalized license plates are very rare and very expensive because you can't just have anything you want and slap it on there. It has to be a combination that has already existed in the past.
Okay.
So very famously, someone had the license plate Magic. I think it was Paul Daniels, MAG1C. And then the C would have been 1970 something because that was the year. So that car has long since been scrapped, but that license plate was transferred from this car to another car. And that's why license plates in the UK are so expensive, because you can't just ask for anything you want and slap it on there.
Okay. Well, there you go.
All right. So this is setting up the beginning of this story. So my granddad, his brother, Gary, had the license plate GOS1, Gary O'Sullivan 1, and GOS11. on a
Okay.
pair of vehicles. And Gilbert O'Sullivan or his people approached my uncle to buy these license plates because he probably wanted to put his Rolls Royce or something like that.
Yeah.
And my uncle wouldn't sell it to him because he didn't offer enough money.
Yeah, it would have to be a lot. I'd be like, you're going to pay up if you're going to take my license plate. Give it over.
There we are. But anyway, you didn't come to this podcast for UK license plate facts.
I got lost in the middle and I was like, wow, I just learned everything about UK license plates. I don't know what we're talking about. And then Tim's like, oh, yes, this related to the original. I just was like, I didn't know any of that. For those who don't know, one of the first adventures me and Tim ever went on together was him teaching me how to mail postage to the UK. He taught me many things.
Yes, if you're mailing things to the UK in a US post office, if it is a letter, you can use the automated machine. If it is a parcel, you have to go to the counter because you have to fill in a customs declaration.
He was sending a birthday card, I think, or a Christmas card or something, so you only had to go to the machine.
Correct.
Anyway, we tried to start a walking club, everybody. It's not like Tim just said, come on with me to go put my mail in the mailbox. And we were the only two people who showed up at the walking club. So Tim was like, I need to go to the post office.
Well, do you know what? I need to get back on the walking in the morning, walking at work thing. I used to go to that multi-story car park across the road and then walk all the way to the top, which was 9 flights of stairs and down and up and down and up. And it used to take me about 10 minutes, and that was my morning workout. And then Pete, there was I mean, it's unaffectionately called the Murder Tower now, which is not nice.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of people who, I think one shot the other one and then the person killed themselves.
Teenagers.
Yeah,
too.
on the top floor of that multi-story car park. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going back over there.
That's probably not a good idea. But there's plenty of places you could find a walk, Tim. I'm still doing my 10,000 steps a day. I've been doing it for me and my twin sister started doing it, Brandy. Probably like 2 years ago, Tim. We still do it.
Yeah, I think I need to get in on some kind of schedule like that because I've completely fallen off the wagon with my walking. Now, I'm off next week. And my intention, unless it rains, I want to get that walking back up.
Well, I will send you motivational messages. Go walk, Tim. Go now.
And if you think is 10,000 steps what you really want to get?
Yeah, that's where it's at. They say that's where your heart rate. That's what they recommend. And once you get used to it, it's so easy to do. It's not even that difficult anymore.
What tracker do you use?
I use a Samsung one because I have an Android, but I mean, you have an iPhone, Tim. You know what you could do.
Yeah, I could call someone and they'd tell me. I don't know.
I was gonna say you could get an Apple Watch, but I mean, just do like a Fitbit. I mean, or you just turn on Apple, whatever they have on their phones. They've got some tracker built into your phone.
Yeah, I've got no use for a smartwatch. I really have zero use for a smartwatch. I have a calculator watch, which is pretty smart. But outside of that, I don't need my notifications on my phone screen. It's something else I need to charge. I don't see a lot of value in having a smartwatch, at least for me.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's what I was going to say, though. Just use the tracker on your phone. Heck, go get one of those old school pedometers you like click on your shirt, Tim.
Yeah, or clip on your belt.
And then you just have to shake it really hard and you'll get your steps really easily. Because it took nothing to make those go. But anyway, people are going to be like, didn't they say that guy works in IT?
Well, I do work in IT, but the thing is, I'm an unusual IT person. I don't like video games, for one, which seems to be a prerequisite if you work in IT. And I don't know, I like computer stuff. I'm sitting in front of a computer here now with a massive monitor, and I've got audio editing equipment and video editing software and all that kind of stuff. And
he edits every one of these episodes.
Yeah, and I live on the internet. I don't really watch TV, and I live on various internet websites, which is where I get all my information. And, and I set the network up in this house. And if anything breaks, I'm the first one to fix it. But I don't know. There's a certain level of geekery that comes with being an IT person that you're expected to have. I don't know. I'm just not interested
it's just
in
funny.
Yeah. I mean, like I work with somebody who's a system administrator and they've got, various convoluted, complicated media servers in their house and Cisco networking equipment that they bought off eBay that was obsolete, and it's doing this and it's routing there, and they're running VMs and they're running VPNs into their house, and they've got their own version of Exchange on a
They have a
VM
server
and
just in their back room.
yeah, servers going on. And I really have no interest in that. I like having tools that I can use for the things I want to do, and I will set them up so they work properly. But I don't know. When I leave work, I have really no interest in trying to set up an instance of Active Directory or Exchange or figuring out a SQL server. I don't know. It's just nothing that really I want to be doing in my spare time. I don't know. Maybe it's just
It's
me.
funny. It's just funny you said that because no, I have heard Tim speak on nerdy things to Charlie. My husband is a big nerd, and he's probably about halfway between what you just said. I mean, he literally builds animatronics. I don't know if you could get any nerdier than that. But with that being said, it's just funny, Tim, when you say stuff like that, because I wonder if they go, didn't they say? I thought he was like the manager of the IT department.
Well,
Anyway.
I mean, I manage a team of help desk people.
Yeah.
And I've done the job that they're doing for many, many years. So 9 times out of 10, if they get stuck, I know how to answer it because I've done that job for a long, long time. But we're currently rolling this thing out right now. I won't bore you with it, but we're rolling this thing out. And I've logged into it and I know how it works and I've set it up myself and blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, if there was a problem with it, the first person I would ask is somebody on that help desk team. If somebody said to me, oh, I'm stuck on the so-and-so, what do I do? I'd say, well, go and speak to blah, blah, because they've worked on it far more than I have, and they've troubleshooted it far more than I have. They would probably have the answer. I don't always have the answer.
Yeah, or Google exists.
Well, there's that too, you know.
Every person I've ever known that works in IT says it's about 60% Google.
Yeah, it's about 60% Google, but it's knowing what to look for.
Yep, that's the key. And having, like I said, I've talked many times about there's 2 types of IT people. And I think the ones that I've hired that were more successful are the ones who know hardware and software, because there's a subsection of IT people, and Tim, you can testify to this, that know software really well. Maybe they've been in graphic design world, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know how to troubleshoot well. Whereas the people who tend to know the hardware and the software, like my husband and Tim, and like kind of have electricity works and things like that, those are the ones you want when you have troubleshooting things going on.
Yeah, I find I have very good troubleshooting skills. I'm very methodical with my troubleshooting skills. Even like when we play with the band, we set this PA up every week, and there's a 50 interconnects or 40 interconnects that connects everything up. Our mixer is on a laptop. We have a rack with all the things that plugs in and all the cables that go with it. And then there's an iPad that's connected via Wi-Fi, and you can mix out in the audio. And we've recently started using a sound engineer. But there's been some times when we've set up and there's something wrong with it. And I try not to get involved with the PA because I don't really want to get involved in that world. Because once you go into that universe, you get stuck with meddling about with every time. So I try and step away and just let the people do what they want to do with it. But sometimes it's getting near showtime, something doesn't work, and it has to be fixed. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to start. And 9.5 times out of 10, if I stick my nose in it and I say, well, what's wrong? And they say, well, this speaker and the subwoofer's not working. And I'm like, okay, well, let's disconnect this. Let's try this. Does that work? No. Does this work? Yeah. I'm very methodical in the way that I can work through troubleshooting. And almost all the time I've done it, I've got involved with that, I can normally fix it. And it's just because my experience in the IT realm of being able to troubleshoot something and trying to look at it from a completely different angle.
Yep. It's true. I've seen it play out. Tim used to be my IT person, everybody. So, at work. So I've seen Tim do that. And Tim knows I'm actually quite good at that kind of stuff, too. So anyway, moving along. This is not an IT podcast, just so everybody knows. If you want, how much longer do you have, Tim? Should I do 2 more songs?
Do 2 more songs. There you go.
Okay. So finally, a song in the U.S. that I'm not surprised by. I mean, not to say... the Bee Gees really wasn't that surprising, but this song is a song that we spoke of. There's many people on this playing that we like. We've brought up many times of the podcast. This was 6 weeks at #1. It is Le Freak by Chic.
Classic. It's Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards. It's just an iconic song. It's amazing. It's disco. It's funk. The genius production of Nile Rodgers. Everything is great about this.
And I mean, it's amazing that, of course, something to sum up the 70s in the UK would be a song about not getting into Studio 54.
Well, of course.
Like at this one, that's so ironic. They did, for those who've never heard the story, even though I'm pretty sure we've said it, basically the song was written where it says Le Freak. It said something else. You can Google it later, guys, but give it a goog. They were trying to get into Studio 54 and they didn't get in. They got mad. They went home and they wrote out Le Freak.
Yeah, I think they knew Grace Jones, and Grace Jones said, "Oh, I'll get you in."
Yep.
And then they get there, and they weren't allowed in, and the rest is history.
And that's how they came to be. I mean, but it is kind of humorous to me that a song to the 70s would be about not getting into a club.
Exactly.
And you're right, it is Grace Jones. Apparently, after they had failed on New Year's Eve the week before, Grace Jones met with them and said, "Well, come with me this time, you'll get in." And they still didn't get in.
There we are. As much as I love Grace Jones, and I think Grace Jones is fabulous, maybe she needs to speak to the door people better. I don't know.
Ma'am, you didn't get us in. It's just funny. All right. And then the UK equivalent is a song that I don't know. So I'm hoping Tim knows it. It's Dave Edmunds, "I Hear You Knocking."
Yeah, Dave Edmunds famously did the instrumental song Saber Dance. I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. No?
Not a clue.
He did he did another song called Girls Talk. You familiar with that?
No. Should I be? And I think he's a US-based artist.
No, he's most definitely a UK artist.
Okay. Well, then I don't feel so bad.
Maybe he was just solely famous in the UK mostly. He was the musical director on the Blues Night of Guitar Legends, the Guitar Legends Seville of 91 or 92 or whenever that was. He was the musical director for that concert, and he opened the concert with Saber Dance.
Not a clue. I guess I need to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, maybe if I heard the actual track, it might ring a bell, but don't know. I guess. And to be fair, there was one other song on here. I'll just throw it out there that was going to be next, Tim, that I didn't know that you can laugh at me. It's T-Rex's Hot Love. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I don't know what that one is either. So that might not have been popular in the US.
Yeah, T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was their original name. I think they crossed the Atlantic, but they were very popular in the UK.
Interesting. So to end it, I'm just going to run through the last few songs real quickly. In the U.S., it was by Sharona the Knack at 6 weeks. I'll Be There, Jackson 5. One Bad Apple, the Osmonds. And these were all at 5 weeks. It's Too Late, I Feel the Earth Move, Carole King. Maggie May, Reason to Believe, Rod Stewart. Killing Me Softly with his song, Roberta Flirt, Black, whatever. Silly Love Songs, Wings, Best of My Love, The Emotions, and Bad Girls, Donna Summer. And then to end out the UK, this was at 6 weeks. It's Bay City. I already said the T-Rex, Hot Love. Bay City Rollers, Bye Bye Baby, which I do know that song, but I would not say it was popular in US. The Brotherhood of Man, Save Your Kisses for Me. Yep. Elton John and Kiki D, Don't Go Breaking My Heart. ABBA, Dancing Queen, and Art Garfunkel's Bright Eyes.
There we are. I once was on the same bill as the Brotherhood of Man at the Lakeside Country Club in Frimley when I was played a Christmas season with the Guilty Party. The Brotherhood of Man was on one of the gigs that we played. Their show, they were doing some kind of retrospective music through the ages, and then it sort of closed with Save All Your Kisses for Me, which was their big hit. I saw most of their show, and it was not, I don't want to be unkind to the Brotherhood of Man, but it was not very good. But one thing I will say about the Brotherhood of Man, they were incredibly nice people.
Didn't they win Eurovision with that song?
I think they did win the Eurovision with that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we hung with them backstage in like the artist bar at the back at Lakeside, and they honestly couldn't have been nicer and more welcoming. They were such nice people.
Well, there you go. Tim had a little fact at the end. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason I've heard this is I think I've seen that in like that clip from Eurovision. And I think maybe Save Your Kisses for Me I've heard on the radio, but it definitely wasn't like a major hit here. But there you go. There's a comparison of the 1970s in both the US and the UK. And once again, I was surprised, Tim. Not what I would have thought.
There we are. Once again, surprising you, Joy, with this world of music.
All right. What do you have for the people?
I just have one tip for the people. If you have the Spotify, now you've got free audiobooks. You get 15 hours of audiobooks every month. I highly recommend the Dave Grohl autobiography called The Storyteller. I've been listening to this for the last week or so, and it has got me absolutely hooked. He is a incredibly interesting person. He and as the name suggests, he's a great storyteller. And he comes across as very humble, but of course, then he's talking about how him and Obama and Paul McCartney at the White House, and then he's here, and then he's there, and then he's in London with his children, and a Rolls Royce pulls up, and then his friend Elton John gets out, and he goes, "Dave, Elton, what are you doing?" Well, I was just buying. These are the kids, hey! And it's that kind of stuff. But it is absolutely fascinating. I have not finished it yet, but if you have the Spotify, I highly recommend you start listening to it.
All right. Well, speaking of the Spotify, I will leave everybody with one thing. There is some sadness in my Spotify world. I have told Tim about this. I have been asked multiple times for my Spotify Wrapped. My Spotify Wrapped broke and they never gave it to me.
Do you have paid Spotify?
Yes.
You should open a support ticket because they can probably fix that for you.
Okay, I'll work on it later. But if you've asked me for my Spotify Wrap, I showed Tim the evidence. When I click on it, I get an error message. So we'll never know. Maybe we'll. I will send a support ticket in, and if I get it fixed, I'll announce on the next episode.
There we go.
Darn. I was so sad. One Phil Reese asked me for mine, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't. All right. Well, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Another day to